Comedians Bill Maher and Wanda Sykes took some shots at each other during the Golden Globes over the weekend.
Maher criticized some celebrities who wore lapel pins that read, "Be Good," a nod to Renee Good, the woman who was shot and killed last week by an ICE officer. Take a listen to what Bill Maher had to say on the red carpet.
Oh, come on. We're just here for show business today. It was a terrible thing that happened, and it shouldn't have happened. And if they didn't act like such thugs, it wouldn't have had to happen. But I don't need to wear a pin about it.
Now, among the celebrities wearing the pins was actor Mark Ruffalo and comedian Wanda Sykes, who made a jab back at Maher as she was presenting on stage. Let's take a listen.
I'm presenting the award for stand-up comedy on television, but first, I want to give them some love. Bill Maher, you give us so much, but I would love a little less. Just try less.
Meantime, the investigation into Good's death continues. The Trump administration is reportedly sending roughly 1,000 more immigration officers to Minnesota. That's in addition to the 2,000 other officers and agents that are already there.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem insisted on Sunday that the extra forces are to keep the officers that are already there safe.
We're sending more officers today and tomorrow. They'll arrive. There'll be hundreds more, and in order to allow our ICE and our Border Patrol individuals that are working in Minneapolis to do so safely. Unfortunately, when you don't have the partnership of the city, Mayor Fry and Governor Walz have been very clear that they're going to continue their rhetoric. They're going to continue to put criminals and corrupt illegal aliens above the people that live in that city and in that state. They've said they're not going to help us, so we'll make sure that we protect our officers, but we also follow through on making sure these criminals are brought to justice.
I'm just really glad Hollywood's getting involved. That's going to make a huge and profound difference.
Okay, let's laugh about it before
Mark
we get
Ruffalo
serious.
and Wanda Sykes weighing in. I think that's just about handled the issue entirely. Don't you agree?
Well, you know what? I think that people are layered people. So I think that you can be good, just like both of us can love politics, but we also like a bunch of other stuff, right? Like I love to travel, right? And so I really enjoy that. And I like to write about it. And I like cameras. And so this is all things. They can love to do their jobs as comedians and entertainers, but also be aware there's a lot going on in the world and feel tone deaf if they don't even acknowledge it. Now, we did go way too far. The pendulum swung all the way across the room with every single award speech a couple of years ago being like a virtue signaling. It almost felt like, are you sure you feel this way? Or do you need to say this? Like, just say, you can say your speech. You got 2 minutes. They're playing the music on you and you're going on a rampage about who's wrong.
I'm with Ricky Gervais when he gave that was at the Golden Globes, I think, or it was the Emmys. I can't remember. I think it was the Golden Globes where he said, get your award, say thank you, and get off stage. None of you know anything about anything. You spend less time in school than Greta Thunberg. Go away.
But
My favorite speech ever.
I also think Wanda Sykes is, just like she's allowed to have her opinion, she's echoing the voice of many people that's like, okay, Bill Maher, like he literally, double dutch the game where you jump in and the ropes are moving. He jumps.
Jump rope game.
Yes, he inserts himself into every conversation, like all the way in, and just is a contrarian.
They inserted him into the conversation. They asked him.
No, he's a contrarian on his show and Club Random podcast. Every single week we have something from Bill Maher being a contrarian on purpose. And so if you want to play that game, then people are going to come at you. Don't make a face when another comedian is coming at you. You insert yourself in every conversation, and then you say that you're left liberal or left leaning at least. And it's like, well, you're contradicting every single thing. Like, what do we have to work with? What does anybody have to work with?
It was just gratuitous and unfunny. And if it was the reverse, if Bill Maher had been up there and said, Wanda Sykes, we'd like to hear a little less from you. Everybody like, look, he's racist. It was racist to say that a black woman should speak less. We know that's true. But I don't have any problem with what he said. People I do have problems with what they said. Kristi Noem has done exactly, I would say, what she's accused Democrats of doing, which is prejudged this situation. Now I saw some, commentary from conservatives, and I think it's important to bring this point up. This isn't exactly my point, but saying that one of the reasons there have been these confrontations between ICE and protesters and people and dangerous situations, someone dying very bad, is the conservatives say, well, keep in mind that the local police in places like Minneapolis are not helping. The sanctuary city policy, the government doesn't want to help deport any illegal immigrants. And so ICE has to come in and do this, they're saying, dangerous work. And so if there was more cooperation between local law enforcement and the state and the immigration goals of the administration, which were which are affirmed by public opinion and what people voted for, then you wouldn't necessarily find yourselves in these situations.
Well, I think cooperation also could be on this back end portion where federal investigators have wholly shut out local leadership and out of the investigation process, which would automatically make local leadership suspicious, because why should we go off of an agency that's so closely attached to Kristi Noem and the president, who have already decisively, forcibly made their perspective known on national television? I think that people are concerned with what would seem like a one-sided investigation. So I think there's a lot that people are complaining about. I also think if we go all the way back to this immigration policy that you talk about, that a lot of people have supported, it's because Biden, it can be agreed that he dropped the ball on immigration. A lot of people on both sides of the aisle said he did not handle it well. Now we're here, but a lot of people who did support President Trump moving forward with immigration policy did not want to see an American citizen killed in the process. And so once that happens, and we've already passed the point where we rushed to judgment, both sides were inflamed, now we're here, does sending more ICE officials to Minneapolis help out the situation in any way? As Kristi Noem, you have a decision to try to figure out, okay, what's the best policy for our country? Because she keeps saying criminal aliens. Like, the point is, when you're going, you're taking migrants away, and some people are feeling harassed at school districts. I saw an interview on News Nation on Sunday where two women that were part of this organization where they whistle to let the community know when ICE officials are near them, started by a school. And they were like, we just wanted to make sure that parents could drop off calmly. We wanted to warn parents, and we're whistling. That's a signal to our community. ICE is here. So if you are a migrant or don't want to be bothered, maybe avoid school that day. And it got so out of hand even now, I don't know if it's still today, but yesterday, Minneapolis schools were closed because they wanted to avoid any parents getting harassed in this line. So when we think about all the ways that we said immigration reform will be possibly beneficial for the people that supported Trump, I don't know that they wanted parents being harassed, dropping their kids off at school. I don't know that they wanted an American citizen, Renee Good, to be killed in the process. I don't know that this was the goal.
No one wants anyone to be killed.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's worth a moment of pause, is my point. It's worth a moment of pause, specifically from Kristi Noem in this moment, to say, let's talk about this. What's our way forward if we still want to honor all the people that voted for us that do want reform, but we realize this has gotten a little chaotic? Surely shutting out local leadership can't be the way forward. Surely sending...
Well, local leadership doesn't want to help.
Well, surely sending more ICE agents in an extremely heightened situation can't be the solution. Maybe it's worth a conversation for everybody to be an adult and figure out what the way forward is. I mean, somebody died.
Yes. What the administration is saying is that, well, you're going to resist us, you're going to fight this, then we're sending in more people. The goal, we are doing deportation. That was what was voted for, and that's what we're going to carry out.
Well, and you have to respond to all the people in the midterms and beyond that, like that are
Joe
Rogan style people that are saying, this is not what we voted for you guys to be running in factories and doing. There's a whole bunch of conversation happening there that's not on the left, because that's conversations that happen regardless. They didn't even want the policies. So for the people that supported reform, like a Joe Rogan, like a Shane Gillis that was on the podcast with him, they're looking at this and saying, what's going on? We didn't want factories to get raided and schools to get people dropping off their kids at schools to get harassed. So then how do you rectify that with the same people that voted for you for the policy? Is it worth all that's happening? You have to answer that question.
Yeah. Law enforcement sometimes doesn't look pretty, and there is a professional class of anti-ICE activists training people who are now following them and recording them, as is their right. They have the right to do that. They have the right to record them. They have the right to follow them. They have the right to circulate information about where they are. That is all First Amendment protected speech. They should not face violence or arrest or detention or anything because of that. But they shouldn't confuse that right, which you do have, with a right to obstruct them, to block the road. You don't have that right. To disobey orders because you think they're illegitimate. They have no legal right to be there, so I don't have to do what they say. None of that is true. That is an attitude that is being taught to these activist-type people, and that is an attitude that will get people killed, that will get people treated violently, and it needs to be forcefully condemned. Not their rights. They have their rights. Right to record, right to protest, all of that, to be clear. But follow police orders. Don't block traffic. Don't drive a car at a police officer. Don't do any of that.
Don't turn your wheel and try to drive away. Because you will get shot in the head.
Don't try to drive away. That doesn't mean you should be shot in the head, but you can't drive away.
Well, that's the message that we're sending. You will get shot and killed down if you turn away and try to get away. You're a U.S. citizen and you don't want to be bothered by ICE.
But you can't just drive off.
You can't. You can get arrested for that.
Yeah.
Then arrest them.
Yeah.
Don't kill them.
Yeah.
Trump's grip on the Republican Party may be tighter than some would like to think.
Yesterday, the Senate narrowly defeated a war powers resolution that would have limited the president's ability to make additional attacks on Venezuela after two Republican senators, Josh Hawley and Todd Young, they flipped at the last minute to bring the vote to a tie. Vice President Vance then cast the tie-breaking vote, which ultimately dismissed the resolution. It was unlikely to become law anyway because it would either need to be signed by the president or Congress would need to override his veto, neither of which were at all likely to happen. It does, however, show the growing unease with the president's aggressive foreign policy in Venezuela, as well as the threats of military action in Greenland and Iran.
Now, it comes as the U.S. has seized yet another Venezuela-linked tanker just today, ahead of a meeting between President Trump and Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Machado. It's the sixth time the U.S. has detained a vessel that is or has carried Venezuelan oil. Senator Hawley, one of the two senators that hopped the fence last minute, said he did so because he received assurances that American boots will not hit the ground in Venezuela. Let's take a listen.
For me, this has always been about ground troops, ground troops into Venezuela, occupying Venezuela. That's not something that I think I would want to do. And listen, I talked to the president, I talked to the Secretary of State, I talked to the Department of Justice. I thank the administration for all of their outreach. And what the Secretary of State said to me very clearly is, we're not doing that. We don't have ground troops in Venezuela. This is not another Iraq. We're not going to occupy Venezuela. And you know what? That's good enough for me.
Well, I'm glad he got those assurances. That is important. However, I would have liked him to hold out, I guess. I think it would be better to have Congress be the ones making these decisions. That is the role prescribed for them by our Constitution. The previous War Powers, the War Powers Act that is in force requires notification of Congress, and then there has to be a vote within 60 days. And the administration has no interest in following that. So I was happy to see Hawley standing up for principles. Josh Hawley is not a Republican I often have very many good things to say about because I really dislike his domestic policies, his economic policies. But on foreign policy, this was something I was glad to see him make a stand for. Of course, it wouldn't have mattered because Trump would have vetoed it had it passed. But no ground troops is a positive, but, we'll see if they keep their word on that.
We know that there was a lot of pressure and aggressive pushback from President himself, who was very public about this. So we understand that people maybe made a choice based on that. I know he said he spoke to Rubio and he said the president, but I know the conversation with Rubio where he was assured that no boots would be on the ground. But this was really simple. It's like if you want to keep using military force or military actions in or around Venezuela, go through Congress. Mm-hmm. And I know that the president and Marco Rubio assured you that it won't happen, but why not have it on paper? It's like if you take a new job, sign a contract. It's not that I don't trust that you're going to pay me. It's that this is the agreement. And, it was sent to prevent future attacks, the same ones that Democrats and Republicans complained about without having enough information or detail. This will give you all the information and detail needed for any time we decide to blow up another boat in the Caribbean, and then there's a complaining mother who's from Trinidad that I love to bring up, like you talk about, who says that her innocent son was killed. We won't know. Congress will know that they made a call on these decisions and that there's no chance for them, because they were thoroughly explaining the mission, what was happening, or if innocent people died, they would feel clear and confident on that. And like you said, people don't think Congress does a great job in the first place as it stands. And so this is your job. This is your job. And the fact that you don't want that on pen and paper so that the people that you represent can be affirmed in what we're doing.
Yeah, their job is
kind of silly.
Voting down efforts to constrain the president even slightly. That's too much for them. It's really sad.
Right. That's why we have three branches of government. That's supposed to be the whole point.
Now we have two. We have the Congress and the executive are merged into one branch. And we have the Supreme Court.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about that. Marjorie Taylor Greene said, Congress is not really, they're just Trump puppets. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the country is considering banning the social media site X because of sexualized images generated by its AI chatbot, Grok. In a radio interview, Prime Minister Starmer condemned the platform, saying, quote, "It's unlawful. We're not going to tolerate it. I've asked for all options to be on the table."
The UK's Office of Communications put out a statement saying that it's launching an investigation into X over the Grok image controversy. It reads, "There have been deeply concerning reports of the Grok AI chatbot account on X being used to create and share undressed images of people, which may amount to intimate image abuse or pornography, and also sexualized images of children that may amount to child sexual abuse material.
Now, the UK's Online Safety Act makes it illegal to share intimate images of someone online without their consent, and it requires social media companies to take steps to prevent such content from being shared. The Office of Communications says it has already been in contact with X to discuss their concerns, and X has responded by limiting the image editing tool to paying subscribers only.
But Elon Musk is blasting the UK government for its investigation. He also pointed to statistics showing that thousands of its citizens have been arrested over social media posts, which Musk repeatedly describes as fascist. On Monday, he wrote, "Censorship is the hallmark of an actually fascist state." I don't think it's fascist to do this, but I think it is very bad what the UK government is doing. It was wrong of Grok to be programmed in such a way that it could produce these images. That has already been fixed so that it won't do that. But also,
oh, no, I'm not letting you say it's been fixed. You have to be a paying subscriber of X for you to be able to still do that, which is ridiculous.
They made you paying subscriber. You can't do that. They're putting better safeguards in Grok so that it will not generate those images, which is appropriate. Of course, Grok should not generate those images. Whether they count as child sexual abuse material or not, I don't know, but Grok should not do that. But there's a little bit of shifting of responsibility here. Who are the accounts that said, "Hey, Grok, generate me a nude picture of an underage girl"?
Yeah,
is it that person who's? Is it like the platform is the platform? The machine is not conscious. It did not choose to generate these images. You asked it for it, and people are putting like, "Oh my God, look, Grok made me a plan to blow up a building." Well, you asked for it. It's an encyclopedia. It just gives you the information you want. So people are shifting their own personal and moral responsibility to a technology that is not sentient, that doesn't make intelligent decisions. We call it artificial intelligence, but it's just a glorified search engine. That's on you for doing that. So that's where the responsibility should lie, not with the equipment, the technology itself, in my view.
I mean, this is sex abuse material. I mean, people are feeling humiliated, dehumanized. These are real complaints from people who actually didn't ask for their likeness to be used in this way. And specifically when it gets into minors, I think this should be a no-brainer. We have our own U.S. laws that protect against this. It's not like UK is doing something that's so wild here. We have the Take It Down Act that passed last year that actually requires you to remove illicit or makes it illegal to share any images that are illicit of a minor or a person. And so, yes, you're right. The conversation is more about should the person who posted or requested the image get in trouble or X the platform, but should they not allow people to make explicit images on Grok? I mean, because from what I understand and what people who went through the new system, it's like you get a message saying, unless you're a paying subscriber, you can't you can't move forward with this request from Grok. And so that means like behind a paywall, we're going to change the way people behave. Like maybe predators are the only ones that will pay, or maybe the paying will deter them from creating these images. I think we need to get to the bottom of it. And there's even states that take it further, like California and Arizona. California has AB 1831 that says any of the creation of these images resembling real children is completely illegal, and you will be charged with that. So it's like several states that are pushing their own laws forward to enhance what the federal government has done
but in
with
the
the
US,
Take It Down Act.
you got to charge the person. Again, not we've talked about this before. Section 230, the platform in U.S. law. You're right. The UK is different, but in the U.S., the platform is generally not responsible for the content that appears on it. You get defamed on Twitter. You don't sue Twitter. You sue the person. So same ways. There's some explicit sexual abuse material or whatever. It's the person who generated it is responsible, not the platform. Now, you could. You're right. There are laws that are exceptions to that mandate takedowns of child sexual abuse material.
And mandate taking it down, period. In the Take Down Act, if a request is made, the platform must take it down, or then it becomes unlawful within that Take Down Act. So if somebody who has the illicit image of them
Take It Down Act might be illegal because of, if they went to court, it might not hold up. Is what
I'm just saying, doesn't Elon Musk, as somebody who wants to use an app that actually people are on and engaging and have good experiences, a variety of experiences, wouldn't he want to make sure that there are not child predators?
He does, which is why they modified Grok so that it won't do this.
I just think he can also listen to lawmakers and not attack them online just try to have dialogue about how to make this a safe environment.
The UK is going to ban all of X over this? I think that's pretty crazy. That would be
that they're probably just hurling threats right now to get him to
curtailing of people's political expression. Keir Starmer probably doesn't like that there's a lot of criticism of the Labour government on X. So he's going to use this small incident as a pretext to forbid political speech critical of him. That is
Elon Musk can admit,
fashy for me.
Elon Musk can admit that he can do a better job. When he acquired Twitter, which he then called
Ask
X,
Grok, it'll apologize to you.
He fired 80% of the department that looked over safety and for Twitter. So people who had an actual job to make sure, I'm just saying, he fired the people that would look over it. Did he rehire them? I'd like to know, because he fired 80% is a large number. And so I just want to know.
It functioned just fine.
It functioned, but we had a lot of mishaps in between, from Grok being a little crazy. Yes,
Grok is a new product. I don't think you can compare that.
Well, it's Grok again. That's people are putting in these requests and people are getting illicit images of them.
You know,
at
you
the very
can say,
least, we should try to protect children.
You can say to Grok, you made explicit images of children and that was very bad. How do you feel about that? And Grok will say, I'm very sorry. That was wrong of me. I shouldn't have done that. I'm implementing safeguards to never do that again.
Really?
So,
I can try that today?
You can also say,
say that to the kid that then gets harassed because
say your apology in the cadence of Jar Jar Binks, and then it will say, Misa, so sorry.
I'm done with this conversation.
All right.
Scott Adams, the creator of the famous Dilbert comic strip, died on Tuesday at the age of 68.
Now, Adams revealed last year he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer and said he did not expect to live much longer. His ex-wife made the announcement along with a lengthy statement on his X account that was titled A Final Message from Scott Adams. Now, the statement says, in part, I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If you got any benefits from my work, I'm asking you to pay it forward as best you can. That is the legacy I want.
The Dilbert comic became hugely popular in the 1990s for its satire of American office life, reaching hundreds of newspapers and eventually being adapted into a TV series that ran for 2 seasons. Later in his career, Adam got more involved in politics, becoming a vocal advocate for Donald Trump in his 2016 campaign. In 2023, hundreds of papers dropped Dilbert from their publications after Adams suggested on his YouTube show that white Americans should, quote, get the hell away from black Americans.
When he made that comment, Adams was citing a Rasmussen poll that found only 53% of black Americans agreed with the statement that it's okay to be white. The ADL said that white supremacists had promoted that phrase, but it's unclear whether Adams was aware of that context. He maintained his comments were meant to be hyperbolic and were taken out of context. Now, reactions to his death have flooded social media on Tuesday, including from President Trump. Trump wrote on Truth Social, sadly, the great influencer Scott Adams has passed away. He was a fantastic guy who liked and respected me when it wasn't fashionable to do so. He bravely fought a long battle against a terrible disease. My condolences go out to his family and all of his many friends and listeners. He will be truly missed. God bless you, Scott.
There was also some pushback over the way certain media outlets framed their announcements of Adams' death. Most of the articles were uncontroversial, but a few did draw outrage from conservatives. For example, People magazine wrote the headline, quote, Scott Adams, disgraced Dilbert creator, dies at 68. And the Boston Globe's headline reads, quote, Scott Adams, Dilbert creator who shifted into racist far-right commentary, dies.
Conservative commentator Shem Horn reacted to the headlines, writing, today's a great day to block every evil media outlet on this website to help starve them of their ad revenue. These people can't go bankrupt fast enough. And former Fox News host Megyn Kelly says People magazine is the new Gawker, classless, nasty, and hates anyone beloved by the right. So Scott Adams, in addition to creating Dilbert, which I loved Dilbert as a kid. It was a great comic, hilarious. Catbert, evil director of HR, was a favorite recurring character in the strip. He branched out into internet social media commentary. He would do a daily Coffee with Scott Adams, where he'd do a daily live broadcast on, I think, on X and YouTube, where he just discussed the news of the day. He was he had some quality that I enjoyed listening to him, even when I didn't really disagree with what he was saying. He had some way about him that was like the cadence of his voice was reassuring or was pleasant to listen to. And so he was very successful for that reason. He famously predicted that Donald Trump would win in 2016, got that right. got some attention for himself. He was not always fully on board with everything Trump did, but increasingly over time became more pro-Trump. Then he did get into trouble for those comments we made that we referenced there, and then his comic strip got dropped. We talked about it on Rising at the time. I think what he said was bad. But in a career of 50 years, you're going to say things that don't hold up every now and then. So for the media to lead with that as the most relevant factor about his life, it is fine to acknowledge somewhere in your remembrance of this person that some people who'd been fans of Dilbert didn't like this shift he made. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But to lead with the thing we want to tell you about him, disgraced, is the first word in the headline. I see how that evinces a significant bias.
Yeah, me personally, whether I'm working in an analytical capacity or actual journalism capacity, I try to avoid when people pass away, bringing the negative comments about them to the top. So this could be anyone from Dick Cheney, some of his policies I disagreed with. This could be anyone like Charlie Kirk. This could even go as far as to when Kobe Bryant passed away. I said, can we just pause for a second? Because immediately some of those articles said a lot of the historical things that he was accused of.
Oh, I agree. I thought that was awful. I spoke
a lot about that.
This is a figure that people look up to, who's inspirational for young people everywhere, and that's you want to say that.
And like you said, it's fine for people to put the whole of someone's life in an article, breaking it down, but to act like that's the most significant thing about the person in the moment or days after or the day of people passing, the people who take the time out that have big followings to go on social media and immediately try to eviscerate people's character, whether you like them or not, that's not my lane. People can do whatever they want. That's not my lane. I think from his goodbye statement that he probably planned out because he knew that he was going to pass probably pretty soon based on a lot of the public communications that he was having. I like that he said, I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. At 68, that's a really young age to die, if you think about it. I mean, my parents are older than that.
Yeah, and so the way we age now. Yeah.
Right, so it just seems like a very sad situation. I remember he pleaded with President Trump to help him out because he said that Kaiser Permanente wasn't allowing him to try to be on one of these, I think, treatments.
Yes.
That was like a test.
It sounds like he was too far gone.
And I get, but because
I support right to try, but.
Right, and I specifically have a close experience to that because when my friends passed away of cancer last year, and she wanted to, it was a sad situation to watch it happen, but she wanted to fight. And so she was on a clinical trial. It extended her life by 6 months. And then we saw her start to deteriorate again. But I remember the hope that it gave her just to try that clinical trial. And I remember the moment when they kicked her off. And she was like, well, I want to keep trying. But I know how it goes with Kaiser Permanente maybe being in a certain box if he's too far gone. But I just understand that when you are holding on to any thread of hope that maybe your friend or your partner or your husband could be the anomaly that maybe beats this thing, then that's a whole other thing. So I'm empathetic to some of his experiences and, the way that he lived his life and talked about politics, I think, and perhaps said things that are disparaging. I just would say rest in peace to him in this moment. And I'm sure there's many other moments to discuss and dissect his legacy and whether it's
remember the mainstream media put the headline, the head of ISIS killed, and it's austere religious scholar dies. Remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one.
I always bring that. They called him an austere religious scholar, and
he was literally the head of ISIS.
Disgraced. Yes, oh my God, that's underselling it.
But you know what's so interesting?
They make it sound like saying racially inflammatory or just cancelable things is a greater crime than killing people. Well, no one was killed by Dilbert.
I don't understand why they want to. I'm so surprised about People magazine. I'm not an avid reader of People, but as I was at my parents' house over last weekend, I was flipping through it. I saw Oprah was talking about her new weight loss and all this other stuff, and that's what I thought the topics were. So the fact that they've been jumping in, I guess, in the last decade into political conversations has also been a little bit jarring to me because I thought people just go there to kind of escapism, just get the tea on who's been working out, who's single, who's the sexiest person alive, things like that. But the fact that and I'm not getting political, but they do tweet out stuff sometimes from their page that seems like they're taking a stance.
They should stick to sports.
Well, I hate to tell people that. I just didn't know that's what I should expect from People magazine.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, very sad news. He will be fondly remembered by a lot of people, particularly people on the right later in his life, the audience he catered to. He really did do something. He was a tremendously successful, idiosyncratic individual, a very unique person to have created this fantastic comic strip, and then to have, again, later in life, really not exactly pioneered, but been one of the leaders in this new form of communication and community, just turning on, just pointing, like there was nothing technically fancy about what he did. He would just turn on the camera on his phone or his computer and just, get a mug of coffee and then just start talking to people, like live streaming, like this is, Twitch type thing, YouTube. And just do that, and people would tune in, and it would get huge numbers of views because he was good at it. He was good at just talking about what was on his mind and giving kind of like some of his political commentary, some of his kind of self-help advice.
Now I'm going to go back and watch so I can get a good feel for his voice.
It helped a lot of people.
Calming. I'm trying to remember if his voice calmed me, but not. Maybe he didn't use calming. He said it's just a good voice for.
If he would appear in my Twitter feed, like clips of his show, I would always watch it, and I don't say that about most people.
It's like. Not to take it here, but like hearing Stephen Miller's voice is also quite annoying to me. So it's a total opposite version of the spectrum. Very squeaky, very like, okay, we get the point. Come on.
He's just pleasant to listen to. Rest in peace.
Another incident in Minneapolis last night as officials say a federal officer shot a man in the leg, leading to both of them being hospitalized.
The Department of Homeland Security said the officer was conducting a targeted traffic stop of a man accused of being in the country illegally. DHS laid out the timeline of events on X, writing, in an attempt to evade arrest, the subject fled the scene in his vehicle and crashed into a parked car. The subject then fled on foot. The law enforcement officer caught up to the subject on foot and attempted to apprehend him when the subject began to resist and violently assaulted the officer. While the subject and law enforcement were in a struggle on the ground, two subjects came out of a nearby apartment and also attacked the law enforcement officer with a snow shovel and a broom handle. As the officer was being ambushed and attacked by the two individuals, the original subject got loose and began striking the officer with a shovel or a broomstick. Fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by three individuals, the officer fired a defensive shot to defend his life. The initial subject was hit in the leg.
Just this morning, President Trump threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act if the unrest in Minneapolis continues. This law, which would allow him to deploy military forces to the area, has not been invoked since the Los Angeles riots of 1992. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in this once great state." Tensions remain high throughout the city in the wake of the shooting. The New York Times reports that there were at least 200 protesters gathered near the scene on Wednesday night. The city of Minneapolis confirmed the incident and said that the man who was shot in the leg has non-life-threatening injuries. The city's official X account says, quote, "We understand there is anger. We ask the public to remain calm. The city of Minneapolis again demands that ICE leave the city and state immediately. We stand by our immigrant and refugee communities. Know that you have our full support."
Meanwhile, new developments in last week's fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good. CBS posted the story on Wednesday morning on X, writing, "The ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good on January 7th in Minneapolis, Jonathan Ross, did suffer internal bleeding to the torso following the incident, according to two U.S. officials briefed on his medical condition. It's unclear the extent of his bleeding, but officials at the time did say he was released from the hospital that same day of the shooting.
However, not everyone was convinced that the claims of Ross being injured were truthful, and some took issue with CBS for reporting on the story. The network has been in hot water with those on the left since Barry Weiss stepped in as its new editor-in-chief. Writer and reporter Laura Bassett writing, quote, "The government is now lying through CBS because lying straight from the podium wasn't working." Former Congressman Justin Amash says, quote, "After gaslighting everyone about the incident, seeing the bad polling, and discovering they'd failed, the administration's next genius move was to leak a nondescript injury 1 week after the fact, possibly as mild as a bruise, and then get all of online MAGA to post, 'See?'
I like Justin Amash, but I don't know. I can't tell. You're right. It could be the case that this is an internal bleeding. This is overblown, and he was not particularly injured. It could be the case that it was more serious than that, and you can get very injured by being hit by a car even at a relatively slow speed. So I don't know what I don't know. I can't tell from the video footage whether it was reasonable for him to think the car was coming at him and that getting out of the way was not really an option, even if it was an option. I don't know. And people just weighing in, oh yeah, he should have just taken the brunt of a car to the chest. That can really hurt you.
Well, I think naturally people...
You can get knocked over, hit your head, and,
Yeah, I think naturally people are going to question what's coming from DHS and from the president, and particularly if anybody else would have reported. I think because CBS has been under this microscope in the last 2 weeks, just because of how it's changed and what the bigger company that owns CBS has at stake if they cozy up to the administration. People are critical of the news network. But I think if the officer got hurt, obviously that's not a great thing, and we want to make sure that he's okay. But there's no incident or part of this conversation where I said ever, or people on the left or right should be saying that they want to see either of the people hurt.
Yeah,
I think the goal was...
I'm just saying it to people who automatically just...
No, but I think the goal was for nobody to get hurt, right? The goal was for nobody to get hurt. So if we look at Minneapolis right now, to me, when I'm watching this video and these pictures, I'm like, this looks like a war zone. Like, what's happening? Like, even watching some of these images, I'm like, these people 2 weeks ago had a neighborhood where, probably everyday average neighborhood going on. And now they have even more, hundreds more ICE officers in their town. And this is just not effective policy. If we look at the fact that the president said he wanted to tackle immigration, many people on his team even more aggressive than he does, but the strategies and the way that people have reacted to it, from going into factories or pulling people out of their car, or even pulling people...
They're not going to do it at all.
But even pulling people out of their cars when they're dropping their children off. It's like there's a better way to handle immigration. And it's not only me saying that.
But the better way is for the cops to coordinate with federal immigration policy in blue cities and blue states, and they refuse to do that.
Well, you know how the president sat down with Mamdani and had an amicable conversation? Mamdani was the one that suggested and asked for the meeting. President Trump thankfully said yes, and they have what seems to be an amicable relationship. Maybe President Trump can be the one to step up to the plate with some of these mayors and governors and say, I'm going to come sit down with you and try to work out these differences, not on Truth Social. What we've seen a lot of is a lot of... We've seen a lot of arguing on social media. I'm saying somebody has to be the adult in the room.
He is subservient to the migrant community who he relies on for political support, which is why both him and Tim Walz didn't want to go. So when they discovered the fraud, wanted to cover it up because they didn't want to be scrutinizing this community because it was going to harm them politically. So they have no interest in doing any kind of law enforcement action for fraud or immigration. They've already demonstrated that. So that's why ICE is being brought in. Now, you don't have to like the way it looks, but that's the reality of what's caused the situation. I'm hearing not a lot of people defending, right? I hope the ambush attack, brutal beating of this officer,
crazy.
He was absolutely justified from that account, from firing a shot at that person.
And he shot, I noticed that he shot the person in the leg. Which is not, I read through the police policy after you talked about it. It's not recommended, but at least we don't have another dead person that we're talking about now. Even though they were attacking them, that would be probably more justified, and we wouldn't have to hash through it as much.
Certainly.
But still, we have somebody that's injured and can get arrested if they need to be arrested because now they're a criminal.
Well, right. I don't want people just dead for the sake of dead. It's, yes.
Right. You don't want
to
excessive force. He still was also being attacked, so maybe there was an excessive force there. But as we learn of more of these stories, nobody wants this to be the outcome where more people are getting shot in the leg, head, anywhere. But at the very least, we don't want
from
people
the police, and the police officer followed him, did not fire on him, folled him.
Right, which is part of the protocol that I had read out the other day. Important.
Encountered him and was attacked, and that kind of behavior. And then who are these people
that jumped in?
Out? Are these bystanders who wanted to interfere with a law enforcement operation? What were they doing? Like, seems
like it needs to be looked into, but I think no matter. So a lot of the conversation that we're having.
If you see law enforcement trying to detain someone, that you should hamper law enforcement. That is a bad way of thinking in your life. That is dangerous for you. It's dangerous for law enforcement. It's wrong. It's legally wrong. It's morally wrong. It's wrong. Don't do it.
Well, when something goes wrong and we're looking back and we're saying, who can we point the finger? Who started this? that gets us nowhere. And so I think the conversation
The
is like,
illegal immigrant who
well,
ran away
okay, we could say, okay, well, President Trump started this because he has this aggressive immigration policy. Well, Mayor Fry and Governor Wall started this because they didn't cooperate. Like, oh, who cares about that? We need to have adults having conversations, people that got elected in office by Americans that don't want to see these outcomes. And so somebody has to be an adult, is what I'm saying basically flat out. I don't care which side it is, but they need to have a dialogue about how to achieve the reform that people were actually looking for in this country and how to not get people shot and killed and officers hurt in the meantime.
If people
and I think
came
that
here
there's
illegally and then committed crimes, violent crimes or financial crimes, or
but wouldn't you prefer an officer not be hit with a
started it?
Wouldn't you prefer an officer not be hit with a broom or a bat or whatever? Like,
of course.
Exactly. So let's figure out a better way to get people
But
that are criminals.
But not by not having law enforcement. We need to have law enforcement.
For sure. That's why they need to have a conversation to start to figure out how they're going to implement.
Laws should be enforced. Or
I don't think
laws.
ICE just all over the place is the way forward.
All right.